Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be doing a 7-round NFL mock draft specifically for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is a pivotal offseason for the Vikings because Kevin O'Connell's coming in as the new head coach. Kwesi-Adofo Mensah is the new general manager, replacing Rick Spielman, who had been with the Minnesota Vikings for a very long time. He had some ups and downs in his career. However, I think that this team is well set for the future. I'm excited to see what they can do. Considering where they're drafting, I think there's so many different avenues that they can look at. You can look at the corner spot. You can look at an edge spot. The Vikings have some optionality. They could even look linebacker potentially if they want to go that far. And at pick number 12, to see what we do have available to us, there's some really good players on the board, in my opinion. You have Sauce Gardner. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, a really, really good man-to-man corner, shut down, didn't allow a touchdown all season long. So looking at him as a potential option for the Minnesota Vikings is huge. When you consider Patrick Peterson was in his contract year, they cut Bashaud Breeland, two of the starting corners for this team. And then there's been some general inconsistencies with the rest of that secondary, specifically in that corner room. Cam Dantzler's had his fair share of issues. I think this is a good time for them to look at that corner spot, especially considering what they do have on their roster currently and what they might be seeing later in the draft. To me, you have to go ahead and select a guy like Ahmad Gardner here at pick number 12. And I'm probably not done with the secondary. I think Harrison Smith very well could be looked at as a potential cut candidate. I'm curious to see the numbers behind his cap hit. Right now, they're sitting at about negative $15 million heading into the offseason. And for the Minnesota Vikings, they got to make something happen. One way of doing that is potentially restructuring Kirk Cousins' contract and actually extending him. I think that's the way he'd be willing to move his money around. Obviously, has an enormous cap hit heading into this season. That is noteworthy. Now, looking here at number 46, we do have some pretty interesting names still on the board. You have Christian Harris, Kenneth Walker's another guy that's on the board. Obviously, we're not looking that direction. Lewis Sinn's going to be another guy that you could look at. But Christian Harris, I think, could be interesting just considering Anthony Barr is obviously not going to be back next year. They don't have the money to extend him. And when they had done their restructure with him, it was by design to make sure that he actually was able to hit unrestricted free agency this year. I'm actually going to go ahead and address that because when I look at this Vikings team, I think Chaz Surratt can be a pretty good linebacker at some point. I just don't know if he's ready to make that jump. I'm actually going to take Christian Harris here out of Alabama just for the sheer fact that you have to look at this linebacker room as being a big core of this team. There's potential that they are moving to that 3-4. From what I'm understanding, it looks like that's the direction that they're going to be going. So taking a guy like Christian Harris makes a lot of sense to plug into that middle alongside of Eric Kendricks. This could be a really, really good dynamic linebacking duo, in my opinion. And the Minnesota Vikings here staying strong on defense, 2 picks back-to-back pertaining to that side of the ball. And that's a spot, an area of concern that we've had all season long from last year and the year prior. Their defense just wasn't close to what we knew it could be. Part of it was due to injuries. Danielle Hunter being out was a huge reason why. And once again, they could be looking at that edge spot. But if you have Danielle Hunter and DJ Wanham, I like that edge pairing personally. I think it's a very, very good one long term. Hopefully, they're able to keep Danielle Hunter around. But I know there has been some potential trade rumors for him. Now at the next spot, I think this is when you do consider that secondary once again. We look at the safety spot. Kirby Joseph's a name that I don't know if I want him to slide any further than he currently is. Really talented safety out of Illinois. I think he pairs nicely with Harrison Smith if they end up holding on to him, which is very possible that they do. I think personally that they would be looking safety there. I know they have quarterback as a potential need, but they drafted Kellen Mond. I think they're at that point, they might be looking at keeping him as that next guy. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the plans are, especially with new regime coming in, new management. How do they feel about Kellen Mond? I'm actually going to take Kirby Joseph. I think safety is a humongous need for this team. And Kirby Joseph's a super talented player. I know they had his ranking a little bit lower than some of the other guys that were available potentially. but I just like what Kirby Joseph brings to the table, and I was not going to wait a round potentially to have him selected. So Minnesota Vikings, 3 straight defensive picks. I think that's necessary considering what you have on offense. Very, very talented offense. The offensive line is pretty good as a whole and much improved from the last couple of years. But I mean, I think Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill, very, very good foundation at the tackle spots. Ezra Cleveland's done a really nice job at that guard spot. Garrett Bradbury, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about him long term, but with where they've gone, Wyatt Davis is another guy too. I do need to mention at that guard spot. I think he's another long term guy. Was a potential first round selection last year. A lot of things unfortunately did not go his way. Ends up sliding to that 4th round. And now here at round 5, we have the Minnesota Vikings once again. I think that they do consider an edge as a rotational guy here at some point. Dominic Robinson's a name to watch. Alex Wright, Cade Hall, all could be potential options for them. And once again, you want to look at that interior, that offensive line as well. Thayer Munford is still here. And that's a guy that I think is being super undervalued. One of the better interior offensive linemen in this class. So I'm actually going to go ahead and select him here. Thayer Munford is an absolute steal in this 5th round. Minnesota Vikings get even stronger up front. They were comfortable taking Wyatt Davis last year. And I think once again, they're going to go back to the well, get another depth lineman. But Thayer Munford, for the value, you cannot go wrong with that pick. Now you are in the 6th round here. I think you could be looking potentially at a depth receiver that could make some sense. I like Jalen Naylor is a name that I do want to highlight and watch there. Could be once again looking at that edge spot. That one to me is a little tough. I'm actually going to go with the depth receiver at this point. Jalen Naylor could fit very nicely as a number 4 wide receiver on this roster. Then once again, we have pick number 190, excuse me. You could potentially look along that offensive line again at that tackle spot. I think you can use a little bit more depth. Obena Eze out of TCU could be the name to watch there. Or for Darian Lowe. I'm going to actually go with Obena Eze as my selection here out of TCU. Looking at what they have on the roster, I'd like to improve the overall depth of what they do have. And it's kind of interesting with the number 6 round picks. I think this will be packaged at some point. And they're probably going to move up in some of the earlier rounds. That's something that we do need to definitely keep our eye on for sure. And now at this point, once again, I think you could definitely look at that corner spot one more time, or Yusuf Corker from Kentucky could be an interesting name. I think you definitely need a little more depth at that safety spot. We're going to double down at the safety position. Once again, I think when the actual draft happens, they won't have this many 6th round picks. Likely will be moved up for one of those middle round selections. They might jump up a few spots and kind of get rid of some of these later picks. Now in round 7, we still have another pick. A couple of safeties still on the board. That's not a need. I think you could also look at that edge spot, which is something I definitely want to address. Michael Clemens is one of those underrated names as well to watch. Seeing who else is still available for us. Trahan Jeffcoat out of Missouri is an interesting name. But I think Michael Clemens, to me, fits best with what they're trying to do with moving to that 3-4. I'm actually going to take him, another rotational guy, in my opinion, at that edge position. So I really overall like what we were able to do. The Minnesota Vikings have a decent amount of back-end draft capital that they can be flexible with, that they can move. So that's exactly what you need with a team that's, negative $15 million over the cap. They're going to have to restructure and figure out some avenues and where they can save some money. So looking at it holistically, Ahmad Gardner at number 12, that is absolutely huge for me. Christian Harris, Kirby Joseph, Thayer Munford, Jalen Naylor, Obena Eze, and Yusuf Corker, and then finally Michael Clemens. Probably my favorite selection of all of this would have to be Thayer Munford at 155. He's just too overvalued or too undervalued in these mock drafts. He's a better player than that 155 indicates. I think that's absolutely huge. He can be a starting offensive lineman in the league, and being able to get him at pick 155 is just insane. So I love that for this Vikings mock draft. I think it addresses some of those key issues at the corner spot, safety spot, and the linebacker spot. This defense is going to be so much more improved with those selections, and hopefully they can make a run at the NFC North if this is how the draft would go. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Also, please leave a like if you did enjoy this video. I'm going to be presenting more and more of these team mock drafts. So let me know in the comment section below who you want to see next.